Hello, this is the Ultra Running Shorts podcast. I'm your host, Scotty Sando. Welcome to our new feature. Now stick with me, short podcasts on all things ultra. In this episode, we're talking about the dreaded poison oak. But before we get to the worst plants in the world, you need to know about our swag bag giveaway going on right now during the month of May at ultrarunning.com. We're giving away an ultra prize package worth over $3,000, you guys, to one lucky subscriber. It's our way of saying thank you for supporting the magazine over the last 41 years. Yeah, we've been around for that long. How cool is that? Okay, this prize package includes a $400 Koros gift card. I love my Koros watch. A Drymax socks bundle worth $400. Victory Designs Grizzly Adventure pack. It's the big pack. It's amazing. You're gonna love it. I mean, it's like the best like drop bag ever. Let Key super light poles, Tailwind nutrition package, Ufos Can Do shoes, Osprey hydration vest, and a lifetime subscription to Ultra Running magazine. And we're going to give you a subscription that you can give to a friend, and so much more. Now, all you need to do to enter is to subscribe or renew your current subscription to the magazine today at ultrarunning.com. And get this, we're going to give you an extra 25% off. How cool is that? So go get it and good luck. Okay, in today's Ultra Running Shorts episode, we're going to learn all things poison oak with Dr. Jason Wagner. Dr. Wagner is an ultra runner and is currently an associate professor and residency program director at Washington University in St. Louis. He's also a lieutenant colonel in the Missouri Air National Guard, where he serves as both a flight surgeon, how cool is that job, and a critical care air transport physician. All right, now let's get serious for one quick second. Warning. Dr. Wagner's opinions do not represent those of Washington University in St. Louis. This podcast is not a medical consultation or initiation of doctor-patient relationship. Use this advice at your own risk. Please, I'm dumb, so don't do that. Okay, you can follow Dr. Wagner on Twitter at the Tech Doc. All right, so after further ado, let's welcome Dr. Wagner. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Jason Wagner, last time he was on the show, he was talking about chasing school buses during an ultra during our hallucinations episode. You haven't heard it, you have to check it out. Jason, welcome back to the program.
Great to be back, Scotty. Thanks for having me.
So good to have you. Now, we're doing these like shorty podcast episodes, and this is the first of what I hope to be a regular ongoing feature. So folks, if there's something that comes up that is medically related that you want to know more about, shoot us an email and we'll consider it, and then hopefully we'll do it. So, and you can reach me at heyscotty@ultrarunning.com. So today we're talking about my nemesis, poison oak, ivy, sumac, whatever the hell you want to call it. It spells disaster for me. So Jason, let's get into it.
Yeah, it spells disaster for almost everyone. I am one of the sufferers as well, but there is a population that doesn't form a response to this, which I just am so jealous of those.
Yeah, folks. We don't like those people. You know who you are. Despise. I'm so envious of those people because they're not going to experience the glory of what is poison oak rash, right? So
right. And I tend to just get it on my legs. Worst place you've ever had it?
Oh, no. I'll tell you my story. Okay, so let me tell you the story first, and then we'll get into it. So the most recent time I had it was Mother's Day last year. I got it on my butt, and I don't know how. I don't know. I wasn't doing anything stupid. I promise you, I wasn't like hiking naked as far as anybody knows. But yeah, I got it there. But a few years back when I was training for Western States, I got systemic poison oak, where I was running a 50K, and it routed us around a trail because a giant tree had fallen on it. And we were wading through head high poison oak. I'm not kidding. And it was an out and back and a hot day. So like an idiot, I just went, oh, I guess everyone else is running through this, so I guess it's okay if I do too. And I ran through it, and I ended up getting systemic poison oak, where there was stuff swelling in my body that should not have been, and it knocked me out of states. My doctor's like, yeah, guess what? You're done. This stuff needs to get under control, because it was a severe case and was not probably one of the worst medical experiences that I had related to running. So
yeah, and I think tangentially from that, I have had really bad poison ivy is what we have in our neck of the woods in Missouri. I'm from St. Louis, but I saw a case of a kid who was mowing a lawn and went over a giant patch of poison ivy in a lawn that he's mowing for some guy, and it aerosolized the poison ivy and he inhaled it. And so he came in with like really bad asthma symptoms, and his whole face was just blowing up like a strawberry.
Oh man.
So yeah, it can be really bad. It can go from mildly inconvenient to really uncomfortable to, really making you feel really terrible.
Yeah, we all have poison oak stories. We all have them, whether it happened to us personally or we saw someone with it. And I read this news story from a few years back. There was like a like a mud run, like a Spartan type run. Not that it was a Spartan run, but it was one of those types of events, like Tough Mud or whatever, where the race director had mulched poison oak unknowingly into the mud that people had to like crawl through. Like one of those things where you like elbows and knees. And like hundreds and hundreds of people got exposed. It turned into like a public health crisis in that area. So, man, you never know. So let's talk about it. So what makes poison oak poison oak?
So it's my favorite part of the whole thing. It's that so poison oak, poison ivy, poison sumac, they all belong to a family that excretes an oil called urushiol oil.
Yeah, it's a little known fact. They're the Manson family of botany, just so everyone knows. Yeah.
Yeah. So it looks like urushiol, but it's pronounced urushiol. So urushiol oil, and you can look it up online, and it's a protective element for the plant. But when it gets on, and it's protective because it causes this inflammatory response that says, hey, next time you come next to me, you probably don't want to eat me because you felt really terrible last time you did that.
Yeah, well, nature, I love you, but sometimes you're bullshit. Okay.
Yeah, and it doesn't discriminate against which part of your body it makes contact with. It makes it unhappy no matter where it is. So that's the base problem for everybody. And what this does is it causes an inflammatory response on your skin, typically for us.
So let's talk about that. So it's contact dermatitis. And so what is contact dermatitis, and what's going on with the skin to make it just like the worst experience ever?
Yeah, so to keep it as simple as I can, and I should also add, I'm an emergency physician who's an active ultra runner. I am not a dermatologist, so I know a lot. I know 6 inches of everything as opposed to like the deep end of anything.
Right.
It's basically when you get the oil in contact with your skin, you create a inflammatory response that releases something called histamines. Histamines are that chemical compound that make you itch. And there's going to be a dermatologist out there who's going to, send in a letter that's like, no, it's exactly this chemical response. The point is, it's the histamine release that makes you itch. And once that release happens, if you then scratch and you irritate and disrupt the surface of your skin further, you release more histamines. And so that then, excuse me, that then causes kind of a chain reaction of swelling. As you release histamine, it attracts cells that then cause your skin to swell, which then makes you more uncomfortable, and it makes you want to scratch more, and it makes you release more histamine. So you get in this cycle of scratching, and then that just makes things worse.
So what are some do's and don'ts when it comes to that, that sensation of wanting to scratch yourself? I've heard stuff like pour bleach on it, pour gasoline on it, get an SOS pad and just scrub at it, pour hot water on it, like scalding hot water to release the histamines. So what should we do?
So number one, if you can do it, is don't do it. Just don't do it. But I would tell you, like, there is nothing short of sexual feelings that feels better than scratching a really bad poison ivy, poison oak itch.
So was your sex good last night? Like, was it like better than like scratching poison oak good? Yeah, man, like way better. Yeah, don't use that as like a litmus test.
You get into this cycle of scratching that just feels so good while you're doing it, but all you're doing is making future you unhappy. So some things that you can do once you're already in the barrel with the problem is instead of scratching, tap. So tapping doesn't disrupt the skin, so you don't cause increased releasing of histamine. So you can get a little bit of that relief feeling by tapping on your skin, as opposed to just, think about your skin as like surface layers on top of each other. If I tap on them, I'm doing that. If I scratch them, I'm scraping them on top of each other, and I'm therefore disrupting the surface layers worse. So that's one thing you can do. Temperature can make a difference, but really it's cold more than hot. So I like to use cold spray, and I cannot think for the life of me what it's like, that athletic spray you can buy over the counter.
Like BioFreeze or something like that.
Yeah, BioFreeze. Thank you. Yeah. So just if you're really going nuts, a little blast of that can make an immediate difference in how bad you itch. So that's kind of a nice little home remedy that can help. Personally, I think heat just makes the problem worse. I will say I haven't read any papers on whether or not that's the case, but and it's not. So you mentioned because it releases the histamines, your body can make more of those. So, it's like burning up all the gas in your car. You can fill the tank up again and there's more gas to burn. So your body's just going to do more of it.
Stupid histamines. Okay. So how long does a rash typically last for?
So part of it depends on exposure. So the rash itself is a little bit dose dependent. So if you brush across a little branch and that's all you did, you're going to get a little strip of rash on your shoulder or wherever, and it'll start to annoy you. In usually 2 or 3 days, you'll start to notice this little itch, and within a week or so, that's going to be gone. But if you had the mud experience or the lawnmower experience where you just got this massive dose, what typically happens is that the areas that got heavily dosed you'll notice them first. And so they'll start to bother you first because they got the most toxin up front. But then what you'll realize is it wasn't just a spot where I got hit right in the chest that I got it. Like day 1, it's here. And then day 2, it's here. And day 3, it's here. And by day 5, your whole body is covered. And then that can last for 2 or 3 weeks.
Oh man.
So when you get a bad dose, it's a 2 or 3 week ordeal.
So that's the dosage, and so why it lasts so long, and that's why it pops up in different areas of your body. And is that why, from my understanding, is that poison oak doesn't spread when you have it and you've washed the oil off? It doesn't spread by itching at it? Because when poison oak gets runny, when it looks just awesome when it's runny, by the way, so sexy, so good.
When you wake up and your sheets are wet and crusty and not in a good way, right?
So does that let's ask, does that, when it's running, does that spread poison oak, or is that
no? So that is a tale that many still believe in. Like, I come to work with poison ivy on my legs and people don't want to sit next to me, and it's like, this is not, you're medical people, and you
Jason,
don't know this,
I got bad news for you. It's not the poison oak, dude. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
Too true. No, so but it's a common myth. And so it's the oil that causes the problem. And so that creates 2 different circumstances for you as the sufferer. Number 1 is you are not contagious. Your partner in bed will not get poison oak from sleeping next to you after you've taken a shower. Take a shower, please. Just take a shower, but they won't get it from you after you take a shower. But the catch on this is that if you take your clothes and throw them in a pile, you take your running pack and your shoes and throw them in a pile, and a week later you go for a trail run again, that oil is still active on those clothing items. So as soon as you touch your shoes again, you're re-exposing yourself to the oils that got on your shoes and on your pack. So wash everything when you get home. If you know you're running somewhere full of urushiol oil, I have trouble with that one.
Just say oil. You oil.
Yeah, just wash everything when you get home, because you just don't know what got contacted, and that'll last the whole season. You can put that in a box until next year, and the oil will still be active.
So we'll just call it the devil's olive oil from here on out. Okay.
I like it.
Okay. So all right. So the oil is on my shoes, my pack, and my clothes. So does that oil have an expiration date that it will fade away and not have potency?
I mean, in the sense that plastic one day breaks down into its base components again, sure, but it lasts a long, long time, longer than you're gonna think about it. You'll forget it's on your equipment before it doesn't do something to you.
That's what always freaks me out about this devil's oil. It's that, so if I know that I've been through it and I've actively touched it, where I know this is it may be too much, but I've had a really shitty experience with it. But I'm wiping down my steering wheel in my car just to be sure that stuff isn't anywhere in terms of contamination. So I go ahead. Did you have a follow up?
No. I just agree with you.
Okay. So is there a time period after exposure that you should go and wash off the oil from your skin And then follow up to that is, what's the best way to wash off oil off your skin? Because I've heard multiple things.
Sure. So this is really, it's a kind of there's two answers to this question, maybe three. So number one, I would say is that there are some barrier creams you can buy that do make a difference. So you can put them over your lower extremities or whatever part you think is going to get exposed. You can wear pants instead of running tights or shorts, things like that. That will help, but as an active runner, you're going to sweat that off pretty fast. So when I run in the woods here, if I'm on a trail that I know is pretty dense with vegetation, I will put a barrier cream on first, and I give myself about 30-minute lifespan on that barrier cream before it sweats off of me. If you're hiking, not as big a deal, but if you're running, you're going to, I sweat a ton. So you're going to sweat that right off. And now the clock starts ticking. So now you have 2 to 3 hours of contact on your skin before it starts to cause a problem. So there's this window of grace for 2 to 3 hours, and I just call it 2 hours. So I give myself 30 minutes for the barrier cream, 2 hours. After that, I'm somewhere with soap and water. So I'll actually plan my runs if they're going to be over a couple of hours long, so that I have a water stop where I can spray myself down. And if I can't locate one, then I'm going to have an extra bottle of water just for washing my legs off. And that's all you have to do. It's the simplest treatment. Within 3 hours, ideally, I would say 2, soap and water on any exposed part. And once you do this a few times, you'll know. For me, it's always knees down. And so I just wash from my knees down. I let the soap run through my shoes. And I have not had a poison ivy outbreak in 3 years since I started doing that.
Sounds like a nice streak to me.
So that's the active part if you are on top of things. Then if you get outside of that exposure window, there are some products that have some medical evidence that they can be beneficial. And those products, if I can name names, I don't have the chemical names. It's Xanthel and Technu are the two products out there that I'm aware of. And those actually break down the oil. So like the Xanthel is the one I typically use. I'm not sponsored by them. I just use it because it's the one I have locally available. But it actually has like a grit. Like if you remember the old pumice soap, that has like a little grit in it. So it has grit inside of it. And the idea is that it helps break down your dermal layer a little bit so that the soap can penetrate into your tissue and break down the oil. So it has a chemical that actually breaks down the devil's oil, as you like to call it. So that's a great treatment right at the end or when you get outside of that window.
As part of that, and when you're in like the second part of that equation, is it better to take a shower or a bath after that exposure when you're washing that stuff off? I
think in the long run, it probably doesn't matter, except I just don't feel like wallowing in my own filth. So I'm a shower guy.
Well,
so I would shower it off. Yeah.
Okay. And like I've heard Dawn soap, does soap matter when it comes to this, in your opinion?
Type of soap doesn't matter. The one thing I would avoid is something that has a lot of perfumes in it. Just if it gets into if you have a cut or something along with it, you don't want extra chemicals getting into your skin. So I would use something that's non-perfumed. Any hand soap works. I carry a bar of soap in my backpack, and that's all I do. Okay. And this is more of a go ahead. I say I use hotel soap. So all those little hotel samples you have at the end of the day, that goes in my backpack.
Oh, that's a great idea. Cool. All right. I'm taking that one. So the, I know you're not a dermatologist. You said at the onset.
Thank God.
For everybody.
Sorry, dermatology.
So if you're a dermatologist and you have the answer to this question, if Jason does not, please hit us up. But does the temperature of the day, does that matter? Because the hotter it is on your skin, your pores start to open up. And so colder, they're not opening up as much, right?
Correct.
So does that weigh into the exposure in terms of how it's going to affect your body?
I don't have a direct answer. I would say perhaps if you couldn't get the soap within that 2 to 3 hour window, but it's not like it accelerates the process. It would just potentially increase the amount of oil that gets into your skin.
Okay. And is systemic poison oak real?
What I would say is real is that if you have contact throughout your entire body, you will create a inflammatory response throughout your body. And instead of it just being localized to a little spot on your arm, it's going to spread it's going to be everywhere you had contact.
Wow.
So the more surface area that's exposed, the higher the inflammatory response is going to be, and the worse you're going to feel.
So when should someone, in your opinion, seek medical attention for that?
So I think, to me, I was a night physician, a nocturnist, as we call it, for almost a decade. And until you experience some of these complaints at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're like, I don't understand why this person's here at 3 o'clock in the morning. So to me, with poison ivy exposure, it's really when the discomfort is so bad that you can't sleep anymore, and you're going on like a couple of nights of like, I can't even get restful sleep because this poison ivy is so bad. So to me, that's when it's affecting your ability to perform just your normal daily tasks.
What's the typical medical treatment for that when you do seek medical attention? I'm guessing they just cut the entire skin off. You can just peel it off. Is that what they do?
Fasciotomy, that's what we call it. So I actually think this is one of the areas where we tend to fail patients. So most of the time that we do steroid treatments for things, we like to do a 5-day dose. So you give them a 5-day burst. Your body doesn't mind getting 5 days of steroids all that much, but if you give your body more than 5 days, every day you add on, your body starts to accommodate to having those steroids in its system, and it starts to adjust the hormonal response it has to things to try to bring your body back into balance, into steroid balance. And so you can actually get withdrawal from steroids when you've been on them too long. So we like to do 5 days for everything. And there's a lot of stuff that works for. Poison ivy is not one of those things. So poison ivy needs to be high dose steroids. And for steroids, that's usually 60 milligrams daily. And you get that for a 2-week period. But what that means is now you have to taper. And so what that means for me as a doctor, now I have to do math. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, math can be hard sometimes. So I have to then taper. Your dose is going to be up here for 2 weeks. And then for a week or so, I'm going to slowly taper you down as you come off of the medication so that you don't get an adverse response.
Is is it an immediate relief when you are getting that treatment?
I would say about 24 hours, somewhere in that bulk, maybe not even quite that long, 6 to 12 hours, somewhere in there, you'll start to feel better. But once you start that, you get that relief, like it's like the light switch got turned off. So I've done systemic steroids before because I had a really bad case. And this actually leads back to one of the points I was going to make. I mentioned barrier clothing. You have to be careful with what you choose. I chose compression socks one time, and all those did was served as a wicking source for the poison ivy.
Oh,
so instead
I
of
never
having
thought about that.
Instead of having a few stripes of poison ivy on me, I had a sleeve of poison ivy from my knee down on both legs.
It's a sexy look, I'm telling you. Really?
Yeah. I was on steroids for that one. And then I have to mention just with steroids. So steroids are the shotgun solution to exposure to the devil's oil. So we really only should be doing it when you're just miserable and nothing else is going to work. So if you have diabetes, it's going to throw off your blood sugar. Even if you have like some potential for diabetes, you might increase your blood sugar while you're on steroids. It actually can cause hallucinations. There's something called steroid induced psychosis. Many people can't sleep when they're on steroids. So there are a lot of things it does. It decreases your immune response. So, I mean, that's how it works, right? The reason it works is it takes away your body's ability to mount an inflammatory response. Well, if you get exposed to COVID, it's going to keep you from fighting off COVID as well. But that's actually why it may help COVID patients. If they have an over response, it diminishes that over response.
Okay. A question that I've always thought about, something I always thought about when it comes to ultra running and aid stations, and where, surprise, surprise, I'm usually a back of the packer when it comes to running ultras. And so I know a lot of people rip through aid stations before I get there. So I think you're anticipating my question. It's secondhand exposure to poison oak. So if someone has been handsy with poison oak because they just can't get enough of it, and then they go and they start touching food and M&Ms and all that stuff, and I'm guessing there's oil on the food now. And can you ingest poison oak by that sort of process?
Yeah. So I think a couple of things with that. First of all, I was in the infantry for 4 years. Like I getting dirty was part of my life. The potato chip bowl always grosses me out. There's like, I know what I've been doing with my hands for the last 12 hours, and you just thrust that pan right in the potato chips and go to town.
Yeah.
So I think the answer really though is that there won't be a high enough dose on somebody's hands. It would be really hard to have a high enough dose in somebody's hands to actually cause a response to you by the time it gets on the surface and then transmits to you. And this is totally anecdotal, but I'd never get it on my hands. I always have it on my lower extremities.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if it's that the sweat in the running motion, it kind of just works its way off of my skin before it can penetrate. But
yeah,
I can tie my shorts, change my socks, touch my shoes. At the end of the day, I'll never have it on my hands.
Let's talk homeopathic treatments. What are some things people do? We hear about oatmeal and that being something people can do, an oatmeal bath, that sort of stuff. Is there truth to that?
Yeah. So I just, because I'm a doctor, I'll have to just correct things the nomenclature a little bit. So homeopathic is actually the utilization of microdoses of medicine that have been demonstrated in science to be ineffective. So like a home remedy and homeopathy are two different things.
Oh, okay.
So
my bad.
Throw that out there. That's okay. All right.
Yeah. Home remedies.
So home remedies. Yeah. So I don't know why oatmeal does have a relieving factor, but it does. Like oatmeal cakes and oatmeal baths will have a slight relieving factor, but I don't have a reason for why that works.
Okay. Are there any sort of like fictitious things out there, myths about poison oak that you'd like to address that we haven't talked about yet?
I think the biggest one is just that if the rash can transmit the illness, which it cannot do. And I think it's not, I guess, a myth, maybe it's an unknown, but you can get the oil off of the branches of the plants once the leaves are dead. So that's another thing that people aren't aware of is, there's no leaves, so they can't count leaves of 3. They'll go tromping off through the woods and wonder how the hell they got poison ivy sumac response. It's because it's all over the sticks. And so like you go find a nice spot to squat down and go to the bathroom because there's no trees there, and you may find yourself in trouble. So you stay on trail, and if you're in a poison ivy area, just be aware of that.
Yeah, I've actually I got it that way one time. We went running off season, and when it wasn't flowery, whatever, and I got it all over my legs, and they were just bare sticks just chewing on the ground. I understand the whole entire thing is even the roots. You can't even touch the roots. Why you'd want to touch the root of the devil's weed, I have no idea. But yeah, it's no good.
Yeah, and I'll just add a couple of extra things. You will see occasionally that there are parks going through eradication processes with, I don't know if they use certain sprays or what, but you'll see trails get shut down because they're trying to eradicate the population. And one of the problems we have, and the second part of this is that with global warming and environment changes, the season for poison ivy in oak has increased. And so now you have more of it to deal with longer in the year. And also it's increased its territory because there are parts of the country it couldn't grow in 10 years ago that it can grow in now.
Cockroaches and poison ivy will rule the world one day.
Well, we're going to talk about ticks one day, and they're actually expanding their territory for the same reason.
Oh, good. I can't wait. Ticks. We're here for all the fun. We're going to call you Dr. Doom. Just Dr. Doom. And I think I have one more thing to cover with you, which is our four-legged friends. I've heard so many stories about, and we'll probably talk about them during ticks too. But dogs are they're good at finding poison oak and running through it. What should be the process of that?
Yeah, I mean, same goes for your dog as goes for you. The benefit for the dog is that typically, especially if they're longer haired, they don't care about it. They don't get exposed to it. They don't have the same kind of mounting response we have. But if you're like my dog, when we're done with the day, you're going to get in a tent with me, or you're going to jump in bed with me later on and go to sleep next to me, and they're going to get that oil all over everything. So they need to get washed up just like you do. And in fact, probably more so because they've more likely gone off trail and gotten more oil on them than you have. And
good luck. I mean, it could be anywhere, head to, tail and belly, and oof, boy, that's why I have a hairless dog. Don't you know? It's just easier. Jason, hey, listen, thank you so much for your time. I hope you guys got a lot out of this. And if there's, again, a topic that you want us to chat about, that you want to know more, hit us up. You hit me at heyscotty@ultrarunning.com. Don't be afraid. We don't bite much. I'll be happy to do it.
All right. Thanks, Scotty.
You got it. We'll see you next time.
Yep. Bye.